Chasen Wayne, brother, happy to have you on the show, man.
Happy to be here, man. Yeah, if you hear a baby crying in the background, don't worry, he's just excited.
As he should be, man. And we're gonna get into getting to hear a little bit of that little one, their story and yours. But the reason I got you on the show clearly is you really busted on the scene. You've already been here a long time, but Bryan accredited you as the last fucking legend in Texas, right? And so I think our buddy Donnie
Mm.
Donnie Cutler has a great thing covering all that, and so I don't think there's any point in beating a dead horse. So if y'all want to see that, just DM one of us, and we'd be happy to send that clip over to you of walking through that story. But I care more about why did Zach make such a bold yet I think founded claim, and so I want to show all of your fans, and all of our followers just who you are and why he would say something like that. And so, why don't you start us off, man? Like, tell us about where you're from, your raising, how you got to where you are today as a person.
Um, well, I will say I do think that Zach probably said that to troll Texas a little bit because
I mean,
he's from
you gotta respect it. Yeah.
yeah, he's from Oklahoma. You know, so I can't verify that either. But part of me is like, come on, man, you knew you were fucking, you knew you were gonna piss a lot of people off. I was really surprised by that post too, because it happened that night after he played the pop up show at Sagebrush. But I think Zach has a good sense of humor. I think is something that some people, and I think people who saw that post probably don't have the same sense of humor.
Mm-mm.
But I did,
He knows how to market.
yeah. But I did appreciate, there is a reason we did get along, and he did make that post, and that claim. But I couldn't speak to that. In all honesty, I'm really grateful for it, though. But yeah, I guess I'll just start by saying I'm from Texas, born and raised originally, uh, North Texas. Um, I was grew up on a ranch that raised, that did team roping and raised cattle till I was about 10, and then we got kicked off that family ranch for family drama, and then I lived in a town called Granbury, Texas. I lived right outside of it, and then I left there at 17 and moved to Austin and started working at venues downtown. Started trying to work from the outside in to get into the music industry. To be an
Hmm.
artist, actually, has always been my primary goal. But after years of just working at venues as a bouncer, eventually I just ended up running one uh, called Sagebrush in Austin, Texas. And yeah, like I said, it kind of went hand in hand and helped my career. I mean, if you want to, there was a lot of stuff that got me here that weren't necessarily great for me at the time, but learning how to adapt and handle those adversities is what made me get on the path of success today, I guess, is what I'd say, you know.
I love that. You've actually built the whole path we're going to go through today because I really would love to see personal, professional, and then what you're passionate about in your life. And so you set it all up. With your growing up, did you get to rope? Like, did you get to team rope at all?
So that's the funny thing is that my grandfather's name is L.D. Jones, and he took it very seriously if you showed enough interest in rodeo to where it was immediately not enjoyable. It was not like a
Mm,
fun thing. It was more
yeah,
of this is a business, this is a family business. He's trying to make the next rodeo star. From the
yeah,
time you're 6 years old, he wasn't, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
to his credit, I mean, he is a great teacher, and we have, I have a lot of family that is excellent at rodeo and really thrived
Hmm.
at it. I have a cousin right now who is just phenomenal at rodeo, and he's homeschooled, and that dude is just, he's only chasing buckles at this point, And
Love that.
I was different. I was like the little at the time I was the youngest, and I lived with like all my cousins and my brother and my sister all lived on the property, and I was more picked on and isolated myself more. I liked to draw and be creative. Seemingly, I was just always a little bit more on the creative side of things.
Wow.
So I was kind of the black sheep of the rodeo family. It wasn't until I got to Austin, my first album's called King Cowboy, and that's like one of my biggest songs, I guess. And the whole irony of that song is like, in Austin, I might as well be King Cowboy. 'Cause that's like,
Yeah.
you know, I never had a whole lot of confidence in rodeo culture
Hmm.
when I was a kid, because I didn't take to it as easily as everybody else was around me, and I was a little more sensitive and artistic, like I said.
Hmm.
But then by the time I got here, I might as well have been, Lane Frost or some shit.
Exactly.
So,
It's crazy because I asked all that just because I wanted to know, like, did you prefer to head or heel?
oh, well, we all are healers. That's like a long generation of healers. Everybody
Love
heals.
that.
I wanted to do
Love
pit
that.
bulling. I had the frame for it. I had the size, even as I was like a big little kid. Um,
Yeah.
and that's something that I still wish that like Cody Dole is a really good,
Hmm.
like, I wanted to do stuff like that more than anything. If I had to choose, that path, but
Definitely.
luckily
I can always.
I was good at sports, I was a really good athlete, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think I was just deterred from rodeo more than from trying to succeed at rodeo. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
Because like yeah, you can like I could ride a horse and I can rope, but I'm not fucking not at a competition level. You know,
Yeah.
I could do it for work. I could go ranch.
Yeah.
I could go pull a stray in, but I'm not. Not like my brother was so good at it. My grandfather, my cousins, my nephew. They're all they could probably all compete still, even
Yeah.
if they haven't
And
done it in a while.
that's what's funny too. Going in these honky tonks, especially in our areas, like bigger honky tonks. I can always tell people's background because I'm 6'4", like 230, 240.
Yeah.
And when people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're such," I wear my hat and they're like, "Oh, look at you, cowboy. Do you ride bulls?" Instantly, I'm like, "You don't know what you're talking about." Like if someone says if I bulldog, okay, but to be a bull rider, you don't know what you're talking about, like clearly, and that's cool, but just like pick a better assumption next time, you know. And it's crazy too that you're saying all that because I actually my first question was we didn't even talk about this before for anyone listening, and the first question word for word, what was it like growing up as a creative? Were you outcasted? And then I wanted to ask about something you enjoyed growing up that no one would have guessed. And it's crazy because you and I relate a lot. I'm the youngest. I grew up also very like more sensitive, and not like I think we both would agree it's not sensitive as weakness because as a kid it did look like weakness, but it's because we didn't know how to express it.
Well,
But it was really sensitivity.
it was treated as weakness.
Yes, yeah. And so it's crazy that you hit all those questions before I even
Yeah.
brought them up. And so I guess the real thing I'd love to know, and probably your fans would want to know, is like what is something that today we'd call quirky, but like growing up, especially admitting your sports too, I kind of got made fun of because I was somewhat of a Troy Bolton in high school. I played varsity, I was all state, but then I also did theater and did a bunch of other stuff. What was something that people wouldn't expect you to have enjoyed in your growing up like ages?
Well, I was always really good at writing. That was one of the few things in school that I was rewarded for
There you go.
quickly. I wish I could say I was a more avid reader. I do read quite a bit, uh, just to like cleanse from music sometimes,
Yeah.
podcast, audiobooks, or just actually reading, just to kind of like clear my brain of my palate. But just a lot of creative writing, but that's not, I guess, that surprising. It's hard to say, man. I mean, I like, weirdly enough, I like manual labor. That's
Mm.
something I've actually always enjoyed. I've loved working out, but I also really have enjoyed when I was ranching. That was my favorite job. When I got out of high school at 17, my first real ranch job was 3 months, maybe 4 months. Yeah, probably 4 months in a town called Keene, Texas, and it's a lot of like
Yes.
Southern Adventist communities and ranches out there. There's not really anything out there, to be honest with you, besides the Southern Adventist Church. But I love that every day. Just even getting up at like 5 in the morning, 4:45, 5 in the morning, driving the 45 minutes, getting there before the sun comes up, and then starting your day at 6:15 and getting off at 3:15, and then like
Mm.
going to bed early and feeling sore. I mean, I dug tunnels for 8 years after that for a plumbing company. I mean, I was doing plumbing as well, but I was digging, just me and two guys from one guy from Mexico and one guy from Brownsville, the border, just with chipping hammers and digging tunnels every day for years, honestly. Until the point, then I kind of lost interest in manual labor for a while.
Yeah.
After years of doing that,
Yeah. Jeez.
it kept me in great shape, and I had some great songs come from it, and it kept me hungry, I guess,
Hmm.
for success. I've never really had a chance to get too domesticated too long.
Hmm.
But that's just something I just like to work. I love being outside. I love sweating. I love the feeling of sweating. I couldn't do sagebrush. The only reason that works out for me is technically it's kind of an office job, but I just do it from my phone and I can still, I've been framing the last 2 weeks. Picked up a side gig doing framing inside of a warehouse with like no AC, no insulation, some event center they're going to build up in North Austin, and it's like whatever, you know.
It's work, and that's what's great. I think about being raised on like a ranch or a farm, like I was as well, because they like you naturally grow up in that. The fact of whether anything needs to happen, you know how to provide for yourself, and if you don't, you learn quickly because you know how to work.
Yeah, the new thing I'm interested in is you know, I want to learn how to be a butcher. Like I want to actually be able to do that.
What the heck? Why are we so alike, man? That's the thing. I mean, I'm good. Like I mentioned it in the intro that you and I have. We were weirdly somehow connected. I can't remember the point of connection. I want to say it was Corey Cross, but
I love
we were somehow connected from like right when I started Honky Tonk Traditions, like 3 years ago. I'm not even in the Austin scene, and I picked up on you, and then it's crazy that we are connecting so much because
and
I love cooking, and Chef's Table had a butcher episode, and I was instantly like, and also growing up, I've always had experience with butchers, but I was like, man, I want to know how to take care of that, like that cycle of the animal, the death part of the animal. I think it'd be great.
yeah, I would. Well, I just like yeah, I don't know why. Well, I did barbecue for that was my very first job for a while, and then I don't know. Now it's kind of like well, the step above just cooking barbecue would be you know
Processing it.
processing it, and that's kind of a
Hmm.
job that's always around, and it's kind of a
Hmm.
skill I just wish I could have.
Hmm.
Uh, until
I think that'd be a great pursuit.
unless my music career, until that takes its next step, where I'm just touring all the time and you know what I mean. It's hard to
Yeah.
sit. You shouldn't sit around and wait to be like famous or
No.
like a rock like Sturgill Simpson or something, But I do intend on putting out like 2 albums a year and touring like 4 or 5 times a year, whether it be
Hmm.
a week or 2 weeks at a time, and still being home to raise my kid. And summer just hit in Texas, and so that means everything slows down because it's so freaking hot, man. It's
Yeah.
109 degrees every day, so you know, either framing, it's like, well, if I instead of doing that, what else would I like to do as a skill if I needed the extra money? And it's like, well, I'd like to learn to
Hmm.
be a butcher. So,
There you go. And you stay in the cold there, so like you were saying. So that's a huge blessing. But speaking about raising a kid, you and Cersei
yep, my wife's name
got
is
married, how, what, a year and 3 months ago?
yeah, with at Sagebrush. The owner married us actually.
Look at that. Look at that. And y'all now have a little one. And of course, I want to keep that as private as possible because again, you have great pictures on your Instagram, but I still want to give the fans a little bit of stuff. And so
His
I thought it would be
name's Royal.
okay, perfect, dude. I
Royal
love that. Yeah.
Royal
Cool.
Wayne.
God, and that's the thing too, man. Chasen Wayne is such a strong name. Is that a family name or is that your stage name?
That's my name. That's my
That's crazy.
my dad is Jeffrey Wayne, and yeah. So I don't know. I mean, we all just. I'm trying to carry on the Wayne middle name. Uh, I mean, Royal. I have a great grandfather who was Esther Royal Mitchell. So I just like the idea of Royal being a name. I'm sure he went by Royal because nobody wants to be called Esther as a man. I don't think so. I was like, that's a good name.
Unless he likes to get in fights.
Right,
Yeah, he might like to
yeah.
get in
Well,
fights.
from what I've heard, that's not uncommon in the family tree. So, uh,
But
go ahead.
to give a little people on your insight though on y'all's marriage again, because we see how like great y'all look together. We see a lot of photos, and like, dude, y'all are glowing. And I don't know you personally, but it seems like she's like greatly impacted your life. And so again, just to give privacy, but also I want to see a little bit of intimacy. If you could describe y'all's relationship in a song, what would you say? I put you on the spot there, but
Uh, to be honest, man, I don't. I would just go out and I tell people that, like, my wife has definitely saved my life. I'm a drug addict, an alcoholic. I even go to sex addicts, sex and love addiction. Like, I say I'm in NASA, Narcotics Anonymous, a sex addiction, Alcoholics Anonymous. So it's like NASA. And, that's about coming, and I come from like a lot of trauma and undealt with
mhm.
things in my life, but it wasn't until meeting my wife, she told me the day she met me, she knew I was an alcoholic. And I didn't, when I got sent to rehab, she was pregnant, and I had probably just spent like 4 grand on cocaine, and probably another 2 grand on just drinking for like a daily habit. And also was like not being faithful, like most of the time, not being faithful at all. And not because it wasn't like I wanted to, that's a whole different story of
Yeah,
why, but like, there were reasons, but there's being accountable for my actions. Yeah, I was not being faithful. I was blowing all our money on drugs and alcohol, and I was actually doing well in music, and I was actually doing well at Sagebrush. And I was about to have my first son, like I think she was in her second trimester or first trimester, I can't remember, but basically, she could see the writing on the wall that I wasn't willing to see long before that, this guy's going to really fuck it all up. And
yeah.
so, I mean, you could name any country song and roll it all into one.
Straight up, yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's been, and I'm on borrowed time with her. Like, the rest of my life is just for a long time, I just thought I was a bad person. I just thought
Mm-hmm.
that I just kind of defaulted to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was willing to accept any consequences, but I'd feel bad if other people got hurt. But that's the things they don't tell you is that you may be willing to face the consequences, but and so you'll put yourself in any situation, but you're not acknowledging the consequences other face because of your
Mm.
actions. And that's something she taught me.
Man, to be honest, I think we could do a whole episode on that down the road of country music and accountability. You
Well,
know.
I talk about it now too because it's I hated how cliche it had become that I'd kind of
Mm-hmm.
become this. Here I am singing songs about like going to jail or drugs or like all the stuff, all the typical tropes under the name of like outlaw, I guess. I never chose that
Mm-hmm.
either. And then it was like, oh, I actually really don't like this now. This all feels very
Mm-hmm.
cliche, and I kind of feel like a fucking idiot. I'm a little more original than that. I have a little more depth than that, and
Yeah.
but also, I'm an addict. It's a real disease, and because of my background, I have to spend a lot more time focusing on hyper focusing on how I'm feeling, how others are feeling, and just working on feelings a lot, period. Or else everything goes downhill pretty fast for me and everyone
Definitely.
around me. So,
And that's why I see a lot in like our time. People really try to fight being a statistic, and then they end up being a stereotype, and it's which is worse, you know.
right.
Um, because that's the one thing I try to always tell people, and I don't like talking to a lot of people who claim to be like real honky tonkers, and they love outlaw. I mean, we as country and agrarian Western folk are naturally outlaw, but outlaw was never about the alcohol. Outlaw was never about the drugs. It just so happened that the people who were very big did those. And if we think that like going out every Saturday and just getting absolutely plastered is going to help anything, and that's like the lifestyle we want to do, that doesn't make it country. You know what I'm saying? It's just that happens that a lot of folks who live out here do that. You know? So it's like I just don't like promoting. I do everything I can not to promote that lifestyle. I just say this is kind of what a lot of people do, you know?
Yeah. Also, shout out to Corey Cross, who's also been a great sober friend in the music world for me. And
Yeah,
also, we're
totally.
from he's from Fort Worth. I'm from not too far from
Granbury.
Fort Worth. So shout out
I'm
to
actually I'm just north of Granbury, you know. I'm out here in Ridgemar, White Settlement, so I'm
yeah.
just right around there.
My dad's from White Settlement.
There you go. And
Yeah.
that's funny we talk about outlaw. Like what would you say is your favorite decade of country music if you had to pinpoint it?
I mean, it's for sure the. I mean, it's for sure the '70s. There's no doubt about it.
Hell yeah.
But
See, we get
the whole thing. I'm sure and other people should know. Like the outlaw thing was more about having freedom in
Mhm.
the genre bending and style you wanted to play, like Willie Nelson, like playing jazz music essentially, or ragtime,
Mhm.
or Waylon Jennings pretty much playing rock and roll at that
Yeah.
time. That's really what it was about. Is then they didn't want to use Chet Atkins studio bands, and they didn't want to go to They wanted to use their own bands in the studio, and
Yeah.
they didn't want strings and sentimental piano on everything. Like they just were like, no, this is what we do live. It works really well for us, especially in Texas, where they're both from.
Mhm.
It wasn't working in Nashville, but it started working in Texas. And here, we can kind of do whatever we want, and it's embraced. Uh, but in Nashville, it's frowned upon because it doesn't fit into like a box that people are used to. That's really what the outlaw thing was about. That's something I actually
Yeah.
do hope I'm associated with sonically. But the drugs and the alcohol and being the cool guy, holding the Jim Beam bottle with his aviators on, and tattoo get sleeves on my like I don't know. That's somebody else can play that game. I guess I don't.
Well, I think it's the same thing about the hat doesn't make the cowboy. A lot of people have tried to tell me, because again, we won't get too deep in dancing because anyone listening that's from my side will kind of know what I'm talking about, and there's no point of following a tangent talking about the dance community. But I also try to tell people that no, the hat doesn't make the cowboy, but the cowboy still wears a hat. It's out of like the respect for it, and so like getting those tattoos, doing the drugs, drinking doesn't make you outlaw. Um, but also the fact that because, kind of like you're saying, because you have tattoos doesn't mean you can't do something here. Or just because you don't look this way or talk this way doesn't mean you can't do those things.
Yeah,
And
it's just
so,
people trying to put other people in a box, and some people are happy to fill, to fill in those boxes. Some people, and I was one of them. I was somebody who grew up idolizing those guys,
hmm
and as much as I like the music, I was also gravitating towards that shit because I don't know, maybe, probably wasn't there wasn't anybody there wasn't a role model around in my life who I could relate to in interest and feelings.
hmm
My father was a great role model. He is a great role model. He does not talk about his feelings. He does not give a damn about music. uh, he works really hard and has really strong work ethic and really good values. But he is not for long-winded or deep conversations. He's not for any of that. He just says he expects you to just watch him and do as he does if you so wish. Does that make sense? To where he's
yeah,
got
no, 100%.
and then he's got a son who's running around, getting tattoos, like getting in legal trouble and doing all the stuff that kids in small towns do who are a little more on the hoodlum or delinquent side, I guess, and uh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's just, Granbury's grown a lot, but back then there was only like 6,000 people there, 6,005, probably about a little over 6,000 people there. I mean, I left before they got like an HEB and all these restaurants. Now when I go there, it's like there's fucking traffic. There was never traffic.
I grew up in a town of less than 3,000, Ozark, Arkansas. I grew up outside of that town, like 10 minutes outside, so I completely get that.
Yeah.
Like, what do you feel though most proud to look like your father and be like your father?
Oh, the work ethic stuff for sure. I mean, he's
Yeah.
like I wear this hat. It says Mitchell Plumbing, and it's his old phone number because when we got kicked off the family ranch, we just lived in like a trailer home for a while, and he started his own business. Just made just enough money to kind of start his own business. Bought a truck, put a rack on it.
Mm.
Hired one helper, and that was it. You know, did that on credit. Went into debt doing that. Didn't have that money up front, and he by like 2007 had finally built it up enough and made enough money to where he built us a house. He took him like
Wow.
2.5 years, but and he would go there after work, so he was already working overtime, and any free chance he got, he'd go and he'd actually be, aside from pouring the slab himself, putting bricks in or doing all the plumbing there himself and trying to
Wow.
get his electrician buddies. And then in 2008 hit, and you know that all went away. So at and he lost this business, and he had to go back to working for somebody and working crazy hours, like 13-hour shifts, doing service plumbing. And I've always admired him because he just kept, without missing a beat, he was like, I'm still going to do it. I'm just going to have to restart. And he didn't like have a dramatic spiral. He didn't start drinking himself to death. He didn't like just give
hmm
up. He just, the next day, went and got a job and just hit the big restart button. And sure as shit, like 2 or 3 years later, had his business back, and he's had it ever since.
I
So,
love that. And see, that's what I think I love the most about our genre, and I would say country and western, is when it comes to things like pop music or rock or anything like that. People can really come from any place of life, and they don't always have many connections. But to me, with country and western, they come from anywhere in life. But most every person that does well and is believable in country music has a very similar story. But you can tell, kind of to me, sometimes I can tell the longevity of some people's career by their story because I'm like, what else are you going to write about? Now, if you get good songwriters, I mean, to be honest, if we look at someone like George Strait, he killed. He's so good, but yet his entire career has been a lot of songwriters. So
yeah.
some people get that way. However, the ones we really connect to, the ones we really believe in, I feel are the ones who share your story. And to be honest, that's a lot of our genre. Like it's huge there. And so I want to dive deeper into that because a lot of people might not realize that, especially dancers, Austin is a huge cultural hub for specifically honky tonkin. I would say not just country music, but really honky tonkin. And that comes from you've already named them, Sagebrush and White Horse, and you are the booking agent. Like what's your title at White Horse?
I'm at Sagebrush. I don't.
Sagebrush. Sorry.
Uh, it's like talent buyer, manager. Basically, I'm like the most senior talent buyer, booker, another word used. It's actually kind
Yeah.
of improper because I'm buying talent from a booking agent. Booking agent works
Yeah.
for an artist. The I work for a venue, so therefore I'm the talent buyer. But I'm the manager. There's two other guys there who do non-country stuff. One does hard rock
Hmm.
and one does indie rock. And they're like, "Hey, I want to offer this guy this much money," and then I run it up to the owner, and we decide if it's worth the risk or not. But the
Hmm.
majority of the time, I'm just booking like all the country events because it is a mostly country venue. We will do other stuff because you got to do that. You got to. Austin's a very diverse place, and we should
Hmm.
flex diversity. But our bread and butter is country music, predominantly honky tonk and alternative country music. I would say.
Perfect. Well,
Yeah.
let's talk about yours. So, like musically, who would you be most humbled to be compared to?
Oh, Billy Joe Shaver.
Love
He's
that.
my all-time. Uh, that's really where I kind of learned to sing more country because I couldn't sing like Hank Senior.
Mhm.
Uh,
You can't yodel?
I can't yodel, but I have that tenor. I am a tenor when I
Yeah.
sing generally, and also just the way Billy Joe Shaver. He's from like fucking Waco area.
Hmm.
I think he's from like actually I forgot what town outside of Waco he's from, but the way he talks and his accent is very familiar to me. It sounds like
Hmm.
how people in more rural North Texas talk, and like,
Yeah. And what
you know.
for anyone who hasn't heard Billy Joe Shaver, what song would you first suggest for them to go listen to?
Oh man, I don't know. You
Just take
could,
a shot.
I mean, Honky Tonk Hero or Black Rose, let's say Black Rose, I guess. But if you like the Waylon Jennings album, Honky Tonk Heroes, I mean, those are all Billy Joe Shaver songs. He wrote that whole album and just
Yeah.
sold it to Waylon Jennings essentially. But my favorite song of his is "Star in My Heart," and it's kind of a rare song. But he wrote it for his son who passed away of a drug overdose, who was his lead guitar player.
Mm.
But I'm a nerd, so go to Spotify and just click play, and
Yeah.
then you can find your own. But he's one of the most renowned, unique singer songwriters ever. I would say he's actually kind of more like Shakespeare because of the way he intentionally uses, poor Southern diction
Hmm.
uh, in his songs. Like it's an intentional thing when
Yeah.
they call it like it's called marble mouth is what they say. It's like when you hear like Boomhauer talk or somebody with like a thick southern accent. They call that being marble mouthed, and he kind of sings that way and writes that way, and it's just really catchy and accessible. There's nothing too flashy about it, but he's always my more than Waylon, more than Willie. As much as I and all the music I love, which I've a ton of music, and I'm very much
Hmm.
a music nerd. Billy Joe Shaver is always my number one, just because he, just like I said, just very relatable. He sounds like a relative of mine,
Hmm.
and also had his wild and crazy days, and found his religion, and missing the three fingers. He's like, only got the three fingers. He's just the man to me. And even though he never got as big as Willie or Waylon, I mean, he just did it because he loved it, and he was a legend. You know.
Yeah, and you're doing the same, brother. And so I want to walk through some of just one of your projects, your most recent, your Strange Places
Mhm.
that you dropped in March. And just walk me through some like inspirations you had, like anything that popped up. And you can go again, brother, go as deep as you'd like. You can focus on one song, but I'm just looking because, to be honest, when I first heard it, man, you brought such of like a funk to a lot of those sounds of just you're just rock like you just rolled. And like, who played steel for you on that?
Steel player is James Manus, Jamie Manus. We call him the
Especially
main,
on,
call
yeah,
him the Manus, like the meanest, but it's the
close
Manus.
enough for love, dude. He
He actually
murdered that.
he actually wrote that whole song. That's one
I
of the
can.
few. That's one of the few times I gotta tell him about this. Uh, he actually he wrote that whole song, and it's about me and it was about a time when he's about when me and my wife were actually having trouble, and that's like ironically enough. So he wrote it for me in a way, but I don't do. I mostly just do my own thing. He's the only
Mhm.
guy I consistently collaborate with because usually I'll bring him like 80 to 90% of a song that's done, and then me and him sit and we say, well, this bridge could use this or that.
Yeah.
He's been in Austin for like 25 years. He's the one of the original members of the band. Him and the fiddle player have been in the band since day one.
Wow.
Jared Standish. The lineup has changed, but those two guys, like us three, is really the band.
They're the engine of the honky tonk machine.
Yeah, it would, if either of those two left, I would not use the term. I would not use that name anymore, and
Hmm.
I probably wouldn't even be interested in making music for a minute. I'd probably need to sit down for a while because those guys are two of my closest friends in the world for sure.
I love that.
Been with me from, like I said, the very beginning of me really pursuing this, like 4 years ago, actually having the opportunity to seriously pursue it.
Yeah. I love that though, dude. Like, I kind of want to take a minute though to just keep us pushing because what I really want to get to is to scratch a different part of your brain. And I want to get behind the curtain of the music industry because you were saying stuff too with Donnie about some topics that I don't think you got to go as deep as you'd like on. And these are the type of things I want to bring forward to people because to be honest, like, I I am a nerd just like you. I mean, when I first moved to Texas, folks were telling me I wasn't doing the two step. So for a year, I studied music theory, I studied dance theory, I studied history. I really dove into this stuff, and it got to the point where I realized that we are doing dancers are doing the musicians a disservice, and a lot of musicians are doing the dancers a disservice because we actually work together. Dancing is
Well,
the physical representation of that music, and we just haven't been together in a long time.
well, yeah, there is definitely, especially in Austin, there's a huge dance culture in Austin. I
Hmm.
mean, I would argue that it's bigger than DFW, Houston. It's the biggest honk country dance. Austin and the state of Texas, at least, and that's a big state, has the biggest dance community, I would say. Because, like, we say stuff like, oh, it's a dancer show. So that means bar sales are going to be meh. You know, they're not going to be like high bar sales on a dancer show, but like 200, 300 people might be there. I just had a show this last Friday where I had 240 people in there, but the bar sales did not reflect that. Now I
Yeah.
could get 400, 500 people in the venue at once, but usually if there's 200 and 240 people, there's like a number you kind of have attached to your brain from like past experiences. But if it's a dancer show or a band that has a big dance following, you know, I might get paid, the band will get paid, but the bar is going to be kind of, just giving people soda water all night. You know what I mean? They're not really making
Yeah, and
this.
I mean that's what constantly I run into with a lot of people is the baseline is always when I talk about certain things returning to tradition. It's like bars have to make money, bars have to make money. And to me, when I teach traditional styles, man, I mean I've been absolutely hammered before. Eyes can't see straight, and I've been able to waltz through a busy floor at Cowboys Red River in Dallas because of the foundation of my steps. And so when it comes to the bar making money and our growth of honky tonk, the renaissance, the country renaissance we're in right now, where do you see the honky tonk going in the next decade? Or where's your hope too? Like where do you see it and where's your hope in it?
Well, the Renaissance that everybody's talking about, it started like
2016, I would say.
2015, 2016. So we're already
Yeah,
almost approaching the end. I would say
yeah.
that because when I first moved to Austin 14 years ago, the White Horse was popular, but it was not, in the last 15 years, country music has not been as popular as it is right now. Like Post Malone and pop stars jumping on the bandwagon, which, sure. I mean, it's not like, you know, if you're gonna like in my kind of what I want to do, you have to be pretty grassroots about it.
Hmm.
Like Sierra Farrell, Charlie Crockett, they all started out very organic, homegrown, just been doing it a long time under every kind of circumstance. Sturgill Simpson, that's the kind of songwriter artist I would want to be in this day and age. I wouldn't really care to be like a Post Malone or a you know Zach Bryan's kind of an outlier because he got
Hmm.
popular via
On
TikTok.
social media. But you're talking like Ernest, Hardy, Morgan Wallen, a lot of those Nashville. I call them the alternative.
And then I'm
Like a lot
sure,
of Nashville sounding is like, again, and I think that like we're about to say probably, it's nothing due to their talent or who they are as a person. It's just how they came up, you know?
yeah, and like some of those guys may have started out in like the writing rooms, writing hits for
Hmm.
other people, which I'm sure is mostly it. And and they focused on their image, and they're in Nashville. But like Charlie Crockett's from Texas,
Hmm.
and I think that shows. He focuses on his image, but it's not like he's being trendy.
No,
You
and
know?
I think that's the outlaw mentality these days. The outlaw
Yeah,
mentality these days is not just chasing the dollar; it is making a statement, and that's what we've always been about.
and he's very at times he's almost R&B and soul, which being in North Texas, growing up in North Texas, him and Leon Bridges, you know,
Hmm.
when I would go to Fort Worth and Dallas, like Dallas and Fort Worth has a lot of soul. It's like it
Hmm.
is a country city, but it is, there's well, one, just to be point blank, there is a lot of historical black history in both of those places.
Yeah.
Blind Lemon Jefferson, but the blues. Dallas gets overlooked for how much influence the blues, or it has had with the blues, from Blind Lemon Jefferson to T-Bone Walker's from Fort Worth, and all the way up to Stevie Ray Vaughan, born in Oak Cliff. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And raised in Oak Cliff
Yeah.
before he moved to Austin. So like I think it's kind of funny how Austin will try to saddle itself up as like a blues town, and it's like, nah, this ain't no fucking blues town, man. This is a jam band town. This is like,
Swing.
this is hippies. You know what I mean? Like this is
Yeah.
hippies and rock and roll. Dallas is a blues town. There's a reason to sing the blues in Dallas. Austin.
I like that. I
There's
think that's cool. I never thought about separating because again, being from Arkansas, that's probably why. But in Texas, I think that's a good breakup. And then also Houston, I definitely see.
Houston
I
is a
definitely
little
see
bit
also
more
some.
of a blues town too, because like the once again historical black music came out
Hmm.
of there. Lightning Hopkins, Mance Lipscomb. That list can go on, but even more so, I mean, they created their own genre. I mean, they gave Texas its own sound and style in the hip hop world, which is already fantastic. But like, ZZ Top, the 13th floor elevators are actually from Houston originally. They just got
Yeah.
popular in Austin. Uh, you know, I don't know of any too many homegrown, like something in the water, Austin music that happened. Janis Joplin is from outside of Houston. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, there's not a lot of people from because people come here
Yeah.
to do that, just like people in Kentucky go to Nashville to do
Yeah.
that, or people in Arkansas go to Nashville to do that. You
Exactly.
know,
And I also think it's important. That's what, again, you say being a nerd, man, but I think you're just an educated country kid. You're a Western kid, technically, it's your rodeo, but like, you're just educated. And people don't assume that us being educated means we're nerds, but we kind of have to be nerds because no one else is doing it. Everyone else just wants to listen to mainstream and call that what it is. And they leave out a lot of people because I've had to watch myself because it was so easy to fall into the trap that if it's not Appalachian, Red Dirt, or Texas, it's pop country. But we don't realize that, like, if you look back, even the biggest names I always fell with was like Ronnie Millsap
hmm.
and Terry Gibson. They, if I just played it and I was like, hey, what genre is this to someone who's not from here, like in the U.S., they'd probably say, oh, that's like disco or funk or
the
blues or
term they used is countrypolitan.
yeah,
It's
country
that.
politics. Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's
that's
technically we would see that as like if that was today, if someone dropped a sound that sounded like that music then, because again they were influenced by the music then, we wouldn't count 'em. But
well,
yet now we
that
look back and
was
like that's country classic.
that was a time and a place. I still call it, like cosmopolitan, you know, music because that was at the time that was very mainstream because that
Hmm.
was disco, man. Like, rock and roll
Yeah,
guys were like saying kill disco, or they eventually it became like yacht rock. It's kind of what it turned into, right? And it's the same thing
yeah.
with country is there were people railing against that style of pop music, and then eventually, uh, Glenn Campbell falls into that
Hmm.
category. Dolly Parton
Hmm.
obviously falls into that category. Like, working 9 to 5 is not a traditional country
Kenny
song.
Rogers as well. Yeah, all of
Yeah.
them.
So
And so like
it's just a time
that
and
I
it was an idea.
but my thing is too, I think like you were kind of saying too, with starting out with Tyler and Sturgill and a lot of those guys from the Appalachian scene in 2015, 2016, starting this renaissance. I would say that was like the pre-renaissance, and then once like COVID 2021 hit, I would say that's when it really started kicking off. And now I don't even think we've hit the peak. However, moving forward, I think the biggest thing why this is all taking off is because country dance, like honky tonks, have filled the interest with wanting to line dance, wanting to two step, wanting to learn how to dance. And again, this is kind of like your fans who listen to this probably won't understand, but there's a huge disconnect, the same way that music is with dancing, where folks will think this style of dance is country, and it's like the most opposite thing. And I say that because it doesn't promote country music the same way a lot of country music after Garth Brooks and Stadium Country hit
Are you
didn't
talking?
promote country dancing.
Are you referring to like line dancing, or which
Line
style?
dancing is country because it started in
Is
like
two step?
disco, but
Two step is
say
country.
again, two step is no. So I'm saying like Barcos. There's a style of Barcos that's come in. It's been here since like the early 2000s. It was started in Dallas by a guy named Mike McKinney. He brought it over, and his goal was to get the West Coast swing that was so popular into the honky tonks. So he created a style that was like very simplified, kind of West Coast swing, kind of country. But again, now it's become to the point where it's like they don't dance to country music, they don't wear country clothing, and they don't dance country styles. So how can it be called country? Which again, it's
Fair.
like it's fine if you want to do this, like, but the thing is, the music you want to listen to is in the nightclubs. Why don't you go to the nightclub? And we know the answer, but you want to keep taking from us. You want to take my opportunities to live the dream that I had since I was a kid, and my mom taught me how to dance when I was 6. Like you're taking that from me, the same way if someone, let's say Morgan Wallen was for some reason coming to Austin and filling all the slots you could be playing music in, and he's saying this is country, and everyone's saying who doesn't know it, oh yeah, that's country. So when you play, they make you feel inadequate or out of place, like a black sheep in your own home.
I
You
will
know?
say I think that I agree with what you're saying for the most part, but like, there's also this, weird thing of Morgan Wallen himself as a person is country.
Yes. Yeah. And I
The
honestly, I have love for him. I hope he really starts bending towards a more independent type look. But I don't hate on him the same way that people do. Keep going though.
But yeah, I mean, so it's the same thing of like, Southern hip hop is country. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm saying is just like you can still be country, and I think the real issue isn't like if you sound country or how country you are. Like, let's pull out the meter or the country thermometer and check.
Yeah. No, that's
The issue is, what are you standing, or not? What are you even standing for? It's just like, how are you going about it? Charlie Crockett is very in the sense of like an independent guy who is doing a specific style of music, and just by his presence and Sierra Farrell's, because they harken back to like an older style, and they're
mm-hmm.
also very genre bending and how they do things, they're actually opening doors for people, and they're not playing any kind of game that like
Mm-mm.
the machine, the system has in play. Does that make
Well,
sense?
that's
They're
what I'm going for.
they're making rules. They're having to make rules for them. They're
Yeah.
not falling into the rules that were already there. And that's the same idea of being the outlaw thing we were talking about earlier. The
Yeah.
issue I think people have with Morgan Wallen is that he's, you know, it's almost like he was like made in a factory, like the whole hip hop country crossover thing. That was actually a moment because like people in the country love hip hop. I love hip hop. I grew up
Mm-hmm.
an avid. I'm just as much of a hip hop nerd as I am a country nerd. Like I just love
Mm-hmm.
music, and I grew up in neighborhoods and areas where even they were rural or country. There was a
Yeah.
lot of that stuff was relatable that was being talked about because it's the South. So
Well, also people don't realize how like the hard living, like blue collar struggle, fighting the system that gangsters or and by that I mean any race and cowboys have in common. Or I would probably say just country boys. You don't have to say cowboys, but like that hard living, the survival. Like
well,
they're
it's just
very
a
similar. They
class.
just don't realize it.
It's just a
Yeah,
class thing. It's really
which
what
is
it comes
exactly what I'm getting to be honest. And that's what I'm trying to talk about dancing is in the end, it's kind of when I was talking about Morgan Wallen taking those places, it's the fact that who is his money going towards? And it's not the fact that he needs to fit this shoebox of like, oh, you got to wear a hat and you got to do this. It's the fact of, like you were saying with Charlie Crockett, on his personal profile, he talked about Kane's Ballroom, the history of it, and the fact that he loved that his grandpa from Arkansas always taught him about it and drove over to Kane's Ballroom to appreciate it, and he appreciates that. That's the point. It's like, it's
and that's
why do you care? Like, what are
yeah.
you doing? And
What do
people
you
in the
care
dance
about?
community,
It's a
yes,
almost a better question. And to Morgan Wallen, it's like I don't think you really give a shit about anything, man, besides just
mm-hmm. Making a
making
dollar
money, and it's just that's
and
I think
get,
that's really what it is. Is like you're not all you are. You're just being put up to make money for the machine, the system of music, which there's always going to be issues with, just like politics. There's
yeah.
the music industry is never going to get it right, but there are people who we as fans could promote, you know,
Yes.
that that do move the needle, like a Charlie Crockett or a Sierra Farrell, et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera. Croy and the Boys here is like somebody that everybody supports a lot locally,
Yeah.
and whether I'm not like I mean, regardless of your political ideas, somebody making really danceable music singing about socialism. It's kind of
Do
like,
it. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, like I'm glad that that exists, just like I'm glad that like Orville Peck exists,
Yeah.
I think it's better if there's a lot of different kinds of faces and attitudes and backgrounds, but the one that we're not really needing anymore the one face, the one attitude, the one background that nobody's really missing, in my opinion. I mean, obviously I'm wrong because look at his income generated.
Yeah.
It helps to have the industry behind you. But like, there's
Yeah.
nothing special about what Morgan Wallen is doing.
Hmm.
And I,
And that's, I
and
feel
like
like a
even
lot of
back,
people,
well, I was gonna say, like, even back when like Florida Georgia Line was doing it,
yes.
they kind of broke open that door. It was, in my opinion back then was like, I don't really like this because I care a lot about hip hop music and country music, and I think there's a world where they probably could be in the same genre. I just think this is poorly done.
Exactly.
And like
Exactly.
I think it's poorly done, and I don't think they're being smart, you know, like why doesn't somebody, even like, just like, if we're going to throw a bunch of money at somebody trying to do this, why don't we make that first person black? How about that? Like, is that crazy to
Yeah.
say? It's not fucking
Or just,
reparations. It's just like, this is obviously leaning a little bit more towards the hip hop elements, right? You know what I mean? Like, this isn't
or
like,
just get the top of hip hop. Like right now, just go grab Kendrick and go grab someone that we believe is super country and then throw them together. Just sit in a room and
well,
write
I
something,
don't think, like from like similar to like how we're talking about Charlie, I don't think Kendrick Lamar has any interest in like, doing
And
anything
that's,
other than what he wants to do.
and then we don't get that genre crossover, and that's okay. That's the thing too, is a lot of people, I think, because they know about the small town stigmas, they think that we are against difference, like something that's different. But really, like you said, it's poorly made things because we can see through it, and we just don't want you to wear that country label,
It's not genuine. It seems inauthentic. It just seems like,
which
this is like they say the term, like, this was made in like a factory. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what it is. And he's a whole ass person who has a whole life and feelings and
hmm.
a perspective. So nothing against
And
him. It's more just
no,
you're not
and
doing.
he's welcome.
Yeah. If you
He's
want to keep
welcome to
doing
come
that,
hang out.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
he's welcome. He's welcome to also like start making music with Sierra or Matt Taylor or Gabe Lee. Like if he wants to get in there and jump in with these guys, go for it. But the thing is, he's not, and we can tell. And that's what I was kind of talking about with dancers. Is these guys are? I have guys who are so smart. They've been in here forever, and they'll tell me, like, John, I see what you're saying, but I'm making too much money. I can't like change. Like I don't want to change that. I'm like, so you don't care about the culture? And they're like, I don't see the culture. And it's like, brother, then hand it off to someone. Change the title. Make a new genre. Change the title so that people like me can come in and actually promote music like yours, because we can dance to it. But the thing is, if I have to go into a competition, brother, I've danced to Nelly and
Yeah.
Tyler Hubbard, sorry. I danced to that song, Cowboys Do or whatever it's called. I
Yeah.
had to dance to that song before, compete in that song. Country and Western, handing out buckles, handing out cash, dance to that song. And I've never, in any competition I've gone to, never danced to George, either one, Alan, Vince Gill, Ricky Scott. Like, I've never danced to any old genre of country music and even today's music. And I think also that's important to note what you brought up. Charlie, Sierra, all these people. I mean, even to be honest, if we want to talk mainstream becoming, Zach Top, they are not impersonating older styles. Like you mentioned, they play the sound, but
They
they are
har-
not impersonating.
they
They're not.
they let their influence show, but they're not trying to be exactly that.
And that's the thing, is these guys aren't playing covers. What they do, to be honest, and I think Zach did a great. He mentioned it great, and I think Sierra and Charlie probably have said the same thing in an interview. He said, "I'm not a '90s jukebox. I love the artists that they loved, and therefore our sound just happens to be the same. But in the end, I'm not a '90s guy. I'm a and I forgot who he mentioned, but he mentioned, some guys from like the 50s and 60s, from the 70s that he loved, 80s, and a lot of small bluegrass guys. And it clear, like you said, it shows their influence.
Yeah.
And so where do you see though, especially in Austin seeing this, where do you see that as an artist we can connect more, dancers and musicians? Where can we connect more to help each other?
Well, I was gonna say earlier there was an interesting thing that was pointed out to me before I put out Strange Places, the album, because it's, for anybody listening, it's not a traditional country album by any means, and it was never intended to be. There's one
I
song.
think it's a honky tonk album. I think you did well. It's a honky tonk album, brother. Like
Well,
it's smooth, it's clean, it's a honky tonk sound.
it has a lot of stuff on it that's not, you know, people could figure it out for themselves. I don't care. But
Yeah.
my point is that like there's a band I admire a lot. I won't say any names, but I'm good friends with the drummer, and they're a really popular local band. And we were watching a really great national touring act play at Sagebrush, one of our homegrown guys. So basically, let's just say I'm talking to a drummer, and me and him are standing at the bar watching a honky tonk band, somebody who does
Mhm.
honky tonk genre music, specifically to a T that 60s, that 60s to early 70s style that
Yeah.
became so popular. They got the name honky tonk. Uh,
Yeah.
we're watching him do it, and this guy who's in a big band turned around and he said, I hate dancer shows. And I said, why? Because that's funny, because that's like all the country guys, a lot of the country guys coming up, they want to play to the dancer shows. That's because that's what you see. You're happy to see people dance. And he goes, at the beginning, yeah, but now when we go on tour and we play, we'll have 500 people like looking at us, and they're like only like maybe a couple people in the front are dancing, but like it'll be a sold out show and everybody's just really invested in looking at us and listening to what the singer is saying and listening to what the guitar player is saying. And I said, and then he goes, and right when we get done, it's like, woo, like giant applause, giant cheering, you know, everybody lines up and they want to meet you. Like, he says it feels like they're really invested in like what we're doing. And he goes, but to dancers, I got tired of that because like this, and then he goes like this right here, and right when the song ended, it was just kind of like some like
Hmm.
light claps, like almost like nice shot on like the golf course kind of thing. And he was like, yeah, because they're not really invested in anything I'm doing artistically. They're invested in each other. They're having a moment, and I can't blame them for that because you have to like be
Hmm.
invested in your partner in order to dance, especially to dance well at a higher level. But I want to make music for people. I want my music to be impactful for people listening to it. So I would rather
Hmm.
trade those environments because in reality, as long as the drum beat's right and nothing sounds too off, he could be saying whatever he wants up there as a singer. And nobody's really paying attention. They're too invested in each other, you know. And I was like, that's a really interesting perspective for a guy who plays in the country ish realm, in Austin, one of the arguably the second biggest country market in the United States. Um,
Hmm.
but it was an interesting perspective, and I wanted to see what you thought of that. And I have to say it was really bizarre for him to be like and like this, and then finish, and then it's just
It
like
did.
golf claps around the room, and then I've seen them play, and when they get done
Hmm.
playing, it's like you know fucking football stadium. You know what I mean?
No,
It's
I do.
dead, but everybody is dead intent, focused on them during their set. Like they are really
Yeah.
and they are a danceable band. People do try to dance to that band. There's just so many people standing in this dance floor. The dancers can't really get away with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting take too. And I guess I never really noticed it because myself and my group, we always try to interact with the band. And so like we would always do like that native cry where you're like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
scream up and we clap and
The great
we're there.
show.
And I guess, yeah, yeah, pretty much. And so I think that's actually huge. And I'm definitely going to clip that because that is a huge call up for us and that we need to do better at. But again, I didn't recognize it because I was already doing it. When I hear a band start out and I hear that first, steel lick, you'll hear me in the back. When I work security, even man, I sit in the back and I'll just yell for them.
Yeah.
Or when they're done, I'll be the first one to give like a loud hit and like a yip to make sure they hear like we approve of that and we love that. And I try to tell people though that dancing is the sign that they're doing well. Because if no one's dancing to your music, then you're not playing good music.
Right.
And so.
There was also something. It's just interesting that I have your ear to say mention something like that, but in reality, that conversation was really about: are you more worried about people dancing to it, or are you more worried about people listening to
See,
what you have to
listening.
say? And
And
I
to be
was
honest,
like,
that's
as an artist, you can probably guess which direction I'm going to lean into. Is be like, well,
yeah,
I kind of want people to really take in what I'm putting down. That doesn't mean they can't dance to it, but I don't want the dance just to immediately distract them or completely deter them from actually listening to like my words as an artist or what the band's doing, actually
hmm
doing like intricately. Like you want it all to be recognized. I mean, that's just you
yeah,
want to make the best product you possibly can. I would love for people to dance to it and it be impactful to them. There's songs like that.
hmm
There's a billion, George Jones can make you feel something just as much as you can dance to it. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
so it's
Yeah,
not
and I think
possible.
that is important. But I do think also honky tonk music, what kind of separates itself, I mean, not from every genre, but like in country specifically, is truly the singer doesn't have to be that good. And I also think that allows for people to be more expressive because one, just
A good
production wise,
example.
when you actually master the sound, a lot of the time the instruments overwhelm the person's voice. Also sometimes the speakers, you can't hear his voice that well. But what it does do is if you do know the song, you hear where the melody is and you can sing with them. But in reality, that's what I thought the beautiful thing was. A lot of old honky tonkers, the great ones, didn't have that best, like that good a voice. But they did have a very slick piano player. They had a slick, rhythm guitarist or a drummer. And
Yeah,
those
like
guys kept
Ernest.
the dancers going and the vocalist just sang like crazy. He just put his
Yeah,
heart out there and you could feel it.
well, that was like one of Willie Nelson's best quotes. Is my favorite singer is Ernest Tubb because he was easy to sing. Because Ernest Tubb just kind of like talks his way through songs.
Yeah.
He didn't
Yeah.
have like a big. He messed up his voice historically. If people want to look up that whole story, but he was
Yeah.
known for just I'm walking the floor over you. He's not
Yeah.
like actually.
But what do people dance into? What do people enjoy? That boom, 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 boom,
You're
don't,
right, right,
don't, boom,
exactly.
boom, boom, don't. That's what they're listening. And so, like you were saying, it's like it's one of those things. Like I think it's all about perspective. You can either take it as like a, I
It
don't
is.
like this. It's kind of an insult to me, or man, I love seeing that. And I do think also we can both meet in the middle. Where dancers, I think that's a huge call out. Hey, be louder, be more responsive. Um, Realize that when the song's playing, it is about you, but also when the song's over, you need to credit the people who let you be in that moment. They created that moment for you. Give credit where credit is due. And so not only,
That's a nice
do you
way to put
constantly
it.
hear the bands, yeah, like keep
I can tell
dancers for
you,
dancing, but
I can tell you personally that I love them. I have music. I have enough material now to where there's music where I'm playing. Then when I play it, I want people to dance, even if the
hmm
word like it's. But then there's some music where it's like, you know, I don't really care if you dance to this or not. So
yeah,
I could
I
take,
think that's important though,
yeah, I could take
because
or
hey,
leave.
my hot take is I think honky tonk should be like coffee shops because early on in the night, there might not be too many people. It's going to be very low, but later on, it's going to be bustling. So as an artist, you need to know when people, it's okay for people to sit in their seat and just drink their beer and listen to you. Even if we want to cry in our beer, let's sit and let's listen to you. But then, when it's time, there's a lot of people and it's hustling and bustling, you pick it up and you control the crowd. And there might be a time when there's a lot of people where you slow down and people don't have to be on the dance
Oh,
floor. And I think I'm a dancer and I still will say, I don't think every song needs to have the dancers out there. But if you're gonna play a slow, sad song, make it a heart. I want to feel you up there.
the guy who turned me on to that, pointed that out to me, coincidentally enough, was a drummer, which kind of makes it even more interesting. Of like, oh, isn't this kind of like what you want? Because you're a drummer, like, isn't this? Aren't you like? It's your fault they're dancing, man.
Yeah, like he controls us, and that's the thing too. I think the big thing too, like we both are talking about right here, is I also don't feel the styles we're showing right now are promoting what the work these artists are putting into. The fact that the drummer changes the beat, like it goes from a waltz to a two-step to a polka, and you didn't change your style. That's so disrespectful to the artist because he's having to change his lyrics. He's having to change the context of his lyrics. He's having to change what not chord. what do you say? This song is an A. It's the
Oh, the key.
arrangements.
The key.
Yeah, the key. And so it's like they're doing all this work and then they're having to do the talent to like put it out there for you. And all you're going to do is walk and spin your partner like crazy and she does all the work. I'm like, I just feel like your style doesn't do anything to promote what they're doing. And so they're doing all the work and you're not doing it. And then when I tell you about it and try to hold you accountable, you think the culture doesn't matter, you know? So, man, I think Roll has given us a cue, but you were insanely refreshing how much you know, how much passion you have, your background, and yet how open-minded you are. The fact that you will stand your ground, but you say, "Hey, there's another side to it," you know. And
Yeah,
so I do
appreciate
agree that Zach Bryan had it right. He might have been trying to be rage baiting, but I do feel like you're the last fucking legend left in Texas. But as we said and as we proven, man, you don't have to be the last one. And so
it.
I'm thankful that everyone's been listening this far. So why don't you close this out by taking the floor and just dropping anything you're working on, dropping any names you'd like to thank, and just pushing people towards where they need to go from this episode.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank my wife and for all she's done for me, and I also want to thank Jamie and Jared, who I mentioned earlier. I'm glad I finally got to drop their names. It's something I always forget to do, but Jamie Manus and Jared Standish, pedal steel and violin, and Chasen Wayne and the Honky Tonk Machine. You can follow me on Instagram at Chayway, CHAYWEY. Uh, we're going to be recording a live album in New York in 2 weeks at
Mm-hmm.
Brooklyn, actually, at Skinny Dennis.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be there 2 nights in a row, both recording both nights. That'll be good. There's a great Tejano band that I'm bringing up from Austin called Automatic Weekend. People should check out. It's like Chicano rock and ranchero music and country all rolled into one. It's pretty cool. Very Texas sounding music. I love it. And then and we're bringing that to New York, which is even better. It's kind of like the
Bringing
Texas.
it back to Jimmy Rogers, bro. That's insane. That to me is evolution. Doing
Yeah,
what Jimmy Rogers did, but doing it with Mexican sound. Oh, we love
yeah.
norteñas. We love Tejano.
So and then after that we'll be on tour in October, going to New Orleans, Athens, Asheville, Nashville. I mean, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see all that stuff. And hopefully I can get the turnaround on this live album. I can get that out in October before that tour. That would be ideal. But yeah, aside from that, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. It's Chasen Wayne, ChasenWayne, and if you're ever in Austin, Texas, come to Sagebrush off of South Congress, and I'll probably be there somewhere. I don't know.
Mm. Well,
So,
Jason, I know you've put in a lot of work, but I do think, to be honest, I think you're just hitting your stride. And by stride, I mean you're getting rewarded for the work you've put in. Um, we've always been connected, like I said, but the more I learn about you, the more I appreciate you. And I know this won't be our last conversation, to be honest. I think we might have actually just opened a box that we didn't expect to really start bringing a different perspective on both sides to folks. And so I look forward to working with you, man.
yeah,
I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and pass on some love to your family, brother.
I will, man. I will. Thank
All
you.
right. We'll talk to you soon, man.